Hey guys, the Subject Dan One again here, back again with another new episode for you guys. And on today's episode, we're going to be celebrating the recent 25th anniversary of the original Game Boy. And I don't think we need to talk too much about how historic the original Game Boy was for gaming in general and for the handheld gaming market. But we're going to check out some of my odd, kind of quirky and favorite Game Boy games. So these are going to be a little bit atypical from most choices, so you're not going to see Mario's, Zelda's, or Pokemon's. These are going to be a little bit different ones that I just absolutely love. So what do you say we jump into the episode? The first game we're going to take a look at is Motocross Maniacs, and I absolutely love Motocross Maniacs. It's a super fun motorcycle based game with physics, so it's all about navigating your motorcycle guide through these elaborate kind of stages. So there's about 8 stages to choose from that you'll progress through, and as you progress it gets significantly harder. But it's all about these elaborate kind of setups and collecting boost items, boost powers to be able to get through some of these parts. And it gets extremely tricky later on, but it's kind of like Trials or something in a way where you have kind of the control of the momentum of your bike, so you can kind of change the pitch of like how high or how low you dip your bike, and that comes into play to be able to kind of safely land on some of these things or to be able to safely navigate through some of these environments. It's super elaborate. You'll be doing loops and like tricky little platforming segments. And some of these, it's kind of becomes more about strategically learning how to use your boost items. So you'll have a set amount of boosts, so you can collect more boost items to have more. But it's all about kind of timing those boosts, because sometimes in order to have like an easy time with some of these courses or to be able to get through some of these courses, you're going to need to be able to strategically use boost at the right time, and if you don't, then you're not going to be able to really clear the stage. But it's super addicting. It's such a simple kind of concept that just gets progressively harder as you go through, but it's so addicting and it works so well. The controls are fantastic, so it's just a really enjoyable game. So I really like Motocross Maniacs on the Game Boy. Now we all know about the iconic puzzle game Tetris. I mean, it's considerably one of the most iconic puzzle games ever made, and anyone who had a Game Boy back in the day definitely had Tetris because it was one of the bundled games, and it was questionably one of the best bundle games in video game history because it was just such an addicting concept, so simplistic. And Tetris is obviously continuing strong today, and it's just kind of consistently evolving, but the core remains the same. But I'm a huge fan of Tetris' spin-off series, which they kind of adopted to calling it Puzzle League. But this is Tetris Attack on the Game Boy, and I absolutely love Tetris Attack. Tetris Attack actually kind of continued with Tetris as well. I mean, we have the Game Boy version here. There's a Super Nintendo version, came out on the Nintendo 64 in a game called Pokemon Puzzle League, and even to this day it came out on a DS again in a game called Planet Puzzle League. So it's continuing strong, and the core remains the same, but I just can't get enough of it. It's so addicting. So similar to Tetris, you're kind of using these blocks, or these kind of blocks that have icons, but they all kind of correlated by like specific icons or shapes, and in some of the other iterations they're correlated by colors. But it works very different than Tetris. So you're using this kind of cursor and you move it around, and you can only move blocks left or right. That's the whole concept. So like this row of blocks is constantly just going up the screen, and you can actually kind of change the speed, because if you start to get really good at it, you kind of want to hurry up and like move it along, so you can hold down the B button to kind of shift up that wall. And it's all about matching up 3 or more of these kind of similar icons. But it's just an interesting mechanic, because the concept they can only move left or right kind of implements certain strategies in it, like being able to kind of push blocks like down a row or down a couple rows to be able to trigger combos or certain things like that. Tetris Attack actually has quite a bit of modes to choose from. Like a typical puzzle game, it has an endless mode and a time trial mode, as well as a puzzle mode, which has you kind of strategically getting rid of all the blocks. And the kind of core of Tetris Attack is actually the kind of stage gameplay, where you'll go through these stages and it's actually kind of based around Yoshi. So like Yoshi's kind of the main character in Tetris Attack, and you go through and kind of challenge these opponents and try and get all the blocks past a certain line in order to clear the stage, and you continually progress all the way through. So you'll meet lots of various other kind of Mario characters along the way. It's a super addicting concept though. Like Tetris Attack is one of my favorite puzzle games of all time. I just can't get enough of it. I own like all the previous iterations that I mentioned, so obviously anytime I could get more Puzzle League or Tetris Attack, I'm all about that. So such a simple concept, and I just think it handles very differently compared to some other puzzle games. So I highly recommend Tetris Attack, or any way you can play Tetris Attack, but this is actually a really stellar version on the Game Boy. So now, people who've been following my channel for a while probably know that one of my favorite Nintendo franchises and one of my favorite Nintendo series is Kirby, actually. I'm a big fan of Kirby, and I also have some Kirbys hanging out back there, as you can see. I'm a huge fan of Kirby, though. Like, there's just something about all the games. There's just fantastic platformers, great music. But this is quite the departure for Kirby, and yet is probably one of the best pinball games I've honestly played in a long time, and I just can't get enough of it. One of my favorite pinball games, and it's even better that it has Kirby and all of his pals, and that's Kirbys Pinball Land on the Game Boy. So it's pinball with Kirby, and it's so much fun. So you use Kirby, and he's kind of the ball as you bounce him around through these 3 stages. You have 3 stages to choose from, or 3 tables, I guess you could call them. But what I love about it is all the tables in this game have so much charm. Like, I played pinball games where like the tables are just so boring, and it's just, like, the tables have to be super fun in pinball games to really kind of keep your interest. There has to be a lot of stuff to do, a lot of side things to do, and Kirby's Pinball Land definitely has that. Each of the stages or each of the tables is so unique. They're kind of broken down into tiers, or I guess like kind of segments. So like you'll have a bottom segment, a kind of middle segment, a top segment. There's like bonus games you can like go into briefly for a short amount of time. There's a lot to do. And there's just a lot of stuff, like it's super active. There's a lot of stuff to trigger, there's a lot of stuff to get points on, and it's super addicting in that kind of facet. And all of the tables are basically based around kind of Kirby stuff, so it's got like Kirby characters and Kirby themes. The music is fantastic, just like any Kirby game, and it's just super addicting. So, and there's this interesting mechanic too, that when you lose your ball, it's not permanently gone. It, like, Kirby will fall like onto this kind of like slingshot thing, and you actually have the capability of timing it right and being able to kind of, I guess, rescue a life there. So you can kind of shoot Kirby back into the playing field, but if you time it wrong, then you lose that kind of life. So it's a super enjoyable pinball game. If you're a fan of pinball games and you're a fan of Kirby, this is just a wonderful game. These are some super fun pinball games, super fun tables, and it's just a really enjoyable experience. So that's Kirbys Pinball Land. Absolutely love it. Now, there are tons of genres in video games, and just so many genres, from first-person shooters to RPGs, to action games, to platformers, to puzzle games, to action-adventure games, to adventure games, to point-and-click, visual novel. There's so many genres. But this next game I'm going to talk about is a game from a long-forgotten genre that was buried in obscurity back in the day, and it pretty much died in the era of like the Game Boy and all that. But back in the day, there used to be an obscure genre called Trapp 'em ups, and Trapp 'em ups were these interesting games that were based around basically a core concept of trapping enemies in the stages in some kind of facet, whether it's like digging holes or something, trapping them and getting them to kind of fall into these traps, and then moving on and progressing throughout all the stages. And this next game I'm going to talk about is a Trapp 'em up game, and it's honestly one of my all-time favorite Game Boy games. I cannot get enough of this game. It's definitely not talked about a lot, but it is one of my favorite Game Boy games, and probably one of the most addicting games I've played on the Game Boy. That is Hyanko-Yo Alien. Now, Hyanko-Yo Alien, like I mentioned, is a Trapp 'em up game. Now, the core concept is that it's kind of the game takes place in feudal Japan, and you're this kind of guy, and aliens have like invaded feudal Japan, and it's kind of broken up into stages. So each stage you want to clear all the stages of all these aliens, and how you do that is by laying traps or digging holes. So it's up to you and your kind of trusty shovel to kind of dig holes with the A button, which will like place a hole and then expand it, because you gotta kind of like hold it down to expand the hole. Because if it's not expanded all the way, it'll only kind of like slow down the aliens, but if it's expanded, the alien will actually fall into it. And then once you have aliens trapped and you strategically got them trapped, you hold down the B button next to the hole to contract it and basically kind of kill them off. So the whole premise is that you're trying to lay these traps to clear out the whole stage of aliens. But it's actually super strategic and super addicting as well. But it's strategic because you can place up to like 4 or 5 holes, and you can place them anywhere on the map and you move around and all that. But you can kind of strategically place holes to either kind of like filter aliens through a certain path, or actually kind of lay out holes to kind of protect yourself and have all the aliens kind of out there. But the AI is actually stellar in this game. I mean, the aliens aren't as stupid as you would think. They're not just falling in the hole all the time, so it's not like super easy. Because sometimes you'll place a hole and they'll never go near it because they don't work that way. They each kind of have their own unique kind of AI that's going on, and they're not that stupid. It takes some effort of like moving around and kind of cutting them off at certain points, and then hurry up and you put a quick hole there and trap them and all that. So it's super addicting. It's such a simplistic concept, but it's beautifully crafted, and as you go through these levels, they get like more in depth. There's like more aliens, there's more things to take into account, like walls that'll disappear and then reappear, or certain things like a boat that you can kind of go across the stage. So it's always introducing some new elements to keep the gameplay fresh. Not to mention, this game has some really stellar music, actually, some really fantastic music, and it actually has the old school version of the game as well, where it's like super primitive. It's just like black and white and just beyond primitive, but it's kind of cool that they got the old school version of it in there. But if you've never played a Trap 'em Up, this is kind of how Trap 'em Ups work, and how a lot of other Trap 'em Ups play. This one is just a really stellar game on the Game Boy. If you love simplistic yet super addicting games, this is honestly one of my favorite Game Boy games. Whenever I'm bored or just looking to play something super fun on the Game Boy, I always look for this game, and that is Hyankuyo Alien on the Game Boy, one of my all-time favorites. So that'll conclude today's episode, where I just checked out and highlighted some of my odd favorite Game Boy games. You know, we've all heard about the Pokemons and the Marios, the Zeldas, and all these wonderful games, which are all wonderful games. But I like to, it's just me naturally, I like to highlight and kind of check out some of the more kind of forgotten games, some of the oddities, some of the odd games that not everyone talks about. These are all some of my favorite ones. But I really love the Game Boy. It's just an incredible library of games, and it's an incredible handheld. I mean, it's just so crazy to think that 25 years ago we were given this handheld, which would basically lay the framework for the handheld gaming market. And it's just an incredible thing, an incredible handheld. If you haven't had the chance to play or experience the library of the original Game Boy games, I think it's a strong thing that you should totally check out the Game Boy games. There's so much, there's something for everyone on the handheld, so it's just really fantastic. So thank you for watching today's episode. As always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.